Welcome back to the SAHMA Exchange, a podcast where policy, people, and property management meet. Today's episode, we're excited to share a conversation with Leiona Newell. Leiona is a regional property manager for Westminster Company. She's been in property management for 20 years. Let's jump right in to how she got started in this industry.
Well, during the time when I went into property management, it was by accident, actually. I was in the process of switching jobs. A friend of mine, she said, well, hey, Westminster Company is hiring. And I was like, that's different. I'll give it a shot. And I did. And I got the position. And then when I realized what property management means and what they did, and I was like, you know what? First of all, I love helping people. And to know that I was helping people, that wanted a safe place to live, a place where they could come to help better themselves for their future, that really touched my heart. And so once I got started in it, I'm like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Leiona definitely seems to be passionate about her role in property management. But what about the minutia? What does a typical day look like for Leiona? Maybe you can relate to what Leiona goes through day in and day out.
A typical day. I will say this, no 2 days are the same. I come in, I make sure I go over, the occupancy reports, the financial reports, and I see what's going on for the day. I may have to return emails, phone calls, take care of resident complaints. And a lot of times I make a to-do list, but sometimes that list does not get done that day. So I just keep adding every day to my to-do list, but no 2 days are the same.
Okay, so maybe not every day looks the same in property management. What was I thinking? Let's talk to Leiona, though, about what her most important tasks are each and every day.
I would say making sure that at every property, for one, that the housing is, safe and decent to live in. For one, I would make sure that that we are following protocol. I would make sure that my staff stay motivated, to make them want to help people. So, I have to do my part in that to keep their morale up in order, for them to do their part.
I'm not going to lie. Sometimes when I think about how much property managers have to do every day, my head starts to spin for y'all. That's why I'm really wondering what Leiona prioritizes as the most important thing in her daily role. Let's talk to her about what she thinks and see if you agree.
Okay, for one, when it comes to residents, it fulfills my heart knowing that I was able to provide them a home or a place where they can call home. And as far as, the employees, make sure that I can provide training and education so that they can be the best that they can be, in this field, so that they could do the same for the next person.
Gosh, don't you just love Leona's heart for this industry? I mean, I really do. It was clear talking to her that she really is passionate about this and that she found her calling when she stumbled upon affordable housing by accident. One of the things I was curious about, though, is how, as a regional property manager or even in higher level positions, do you juggle things when, staffing is an issue, when maybe you're down a property manager or you've lost a couple of maintenance folks? Let's talk to Leiona about how she handles that situation.
So, well, basically, if we are down a PM, we actually send people over to that property, to help out to make sure things still continue to run. We do have a compliance person that's in charge of making sure that there's, a manager on site a few days a week if they are helping out, 1 to 2 days a week, or depending on the need, right? And we make sure that, when you're looking at the residents and the industry, when you're looking at the needs, we do have to follow industry policy, right? So we have to sit back and think about, hey, what does this person need? How can we get this person what they need as long as we are sticking to the industry policy, HUD policies, through training? For one, you have to have training in order to be able to do that. There is no gray area, and in order for it to be no gray area, everyone has to make sure that they're trained properly to handle whatever issues. And that's why it's great, to have a community like SAHMA. That way you can go to your peers there. You can go to the peers within the company you work for, to make sure of the decisions, that you decide to make sure that the resident is okay and we're sticking to industry policies.
So I'm pretty sure that so far you can relate to what Leiona is saying about her role as a regional property manager. Next, we talk a little bit about SAHMA and what she values about SAHMA and how SAHMA helps her do her job better. Let's listen to what she has to say.
So with SAHMA, I believe SAHMA is important because you get a chance to be with your peers that works in the industry. And with that, you can connect with all of them. And I feel like, that helps me and it helps other peers as well, that, we can get together and we can talk about our community and bounce ideas off of each other and come up with conclusions on, how we can fix things or how we can make things better. And that's what I really love, because it's a big networking community where you could reach out. I can pick up my phone at any time. There's someone that I can call in the industry that I've met through SAHMA that I can call and say, hey, have you ever had this issue? How did you handle this? Or who did you speak to? So, that's one thing that, I really love, being able to connect with everyone. To me, everyone with SAHMA is like one big family. We help each other out. We communicate, we network, and we make sure that we come up with the best ideas, for the companies so that we can provide that safe, decent housing for residents. Because, that's what it's all about, making sure that we can have places for families to come and call home.
Oh my goodness, I love how Leiona just ended that last segment talking about what it's all about. It's about giving residents a safe, comfortable place to call home. Next, I'm going to talk to Leiona about some of her personal experiences and some of her interactions with residents. I think you're going to love this next part, so lean in and listen.
So I had a resident. She told me that I really changed her life because she was on our waiting list and she would come into the office like clockwork every week. She said, I need somewhere to go. Her and her kids had been, sleeping in her vehicle. And she wanted nothing but the best to find her and her family, somewhere to go. And like I said, she would come in like clockwork. And I told her, I said, you have to wait for your name to come up on the waiting list. And she would say, please just pray for me. Now, during that time, we had been going down our waiting list. We sent notices out Sure enough, her name came to the top of the list. And when I called her and I sent her a letter, but I called and I said, "Hi, how are you today?" She said, "I don't know." She said, "My cell phone bill is due tomorrow. I can't pay it. I have nowhere for me and my kids to go." And I said, "Well, can you make it by here today?" I said, "Because your name is at the top of the waiting list." And she told me, she said, "You have no idea what you have done for me and my family." And I said, "Well, you know what?" I said, "I'll be here when you get here." We got off the phone. She called back a little bit later on that afternoon. And she said, "Oh my God, something happened with my car. I don't know what time I could get there. But this lady that I just met said that she would bring me, but she can't bring me to after 5." And I said, "You know what? I'll wait on you." And I waited on her. And we got all of her pre-paperwork done. And she was able to move in that following week. Actually, the lady that brought her over there, she needed, like a little bit of money for her security deposit. That lady blessed her and gave her the money for her security deposit so that she could move in. And then she received help from different organizations from a list that we had given her. And when I tell you, she was so thankful that we, gave her a list so that she could, go find other avenues of getting help with getting the lights and water turned on. And that for me, oh my God, I was so fulfilled because she was so happy. And I was happy because I was able to get that family into a home. When at the end of the day, she thought she had nothing left. She had nowhere to go.
Wow, I don't know about you, but that story was so beautiful to hear. Just to think about there was somebody put in that mother's life at the right time, in the right place to help her get to Leona's property and help her pay for her security deposit. It's just so cool when things like that happen in life. What's really great about talking to Leiona is to hear her passion about helping others. And that's why she does what she does. She continues on now. So take a listen to what she has to say. And I hope some of it doesn't start to sound redundant to us, because this is really what affordable housing is about. It's easy to get caught up in all of the details, in the policies, in the finances, and all of the things. But at the end of the day, it's really about helping others.
Well, working in this field, you have to wear so many hats. So many hats. If you've never worked in property management, if you're on the outside looking in, you don't know how many hats that we have to wear. We'll have people coming in for everything, and we do our best to help them. And if we can't help, we will find somebody that can. And if we have to pick up the phone and call some of our peers, call some of our peers with SAHMA, we'll always go above and beyond to make sure that we can get them the help that they deserve.
One of the things that so many of the SAHMA members have talked about in these conversations is the stigma that exists around affordable housing in our communities. I hope you don't tune this conversation out, because it's meant to encourage us. The more we talk about it, the more we're going to be inspired to advocate for our residents and educate our communities that affordable housing isn't what they think it is. Let's talk to Leiona about this and see what she has to say.
All the time. And that happens in every state. And I don't think that a lot of them truly know what we do, because we don't just rent apartments. I mean, we are literally there to give them an outlet, to give them a new beginning, to help them go further at whatever they want to do. At some of our communities, well, at just about all of them, We have resident services coordinators that will help them go to housekeeping classes, home buyers classes, help them get their GED. I mean, it goes above and beyond just renting someone an apartment. I would want them to know that they are people just like you are, and they need help just like you would need help. And allow us to provide that to them. You know, don't belittle them, don't talk down to them, because guess what? They want a nice, decent, safe place to live too.
I hope every time that this conversation comes up that you'll just simply lean in and listen to what people are saying and share your thoughts about the resonance of your own communities. You know, a few numbers we found while getting this episode ready is that 51% of extremely low income renter householders are seniors or people with disabilities. Another 40% are in the labor force, in school, or are single adult caregivers. And that includes caregivers of children or family members with disabilities. And of those renters in the labor force, 42% usually work full time. So just a few numbers to get us thinking about why that stigma exists and how it needs to be broken up. Leiona has one more thing to share with us. I hope you'll stick with it. Take a listen, and then I'll see you on the other side and we'll wrap this episode up.
I want to say this. When I first got into property management, I had no idea what I was getting into, but I'm glad I got into it. It's fulfilling knowing that we can help people get into apartments, help them find a home, somewhere safe, somewhere clean. So that's very fulfilling to me. And I love the industry, and I love SAHMA.
Oh man, it was so good to talk to Leiona. She's like a breath of fresh air. It was just so nice to hit pause from policies and procedures and resident issues and staffing issues and just listen to someone who truly has the heart behind the why. It was so great to talk to her and be reminded about why we do what we do. So here in like 20 minutes after you stop listening to this podcast and work gets a little bit difficult, a complaint comes in, or there's a flood at a property or whatever it might be, take a deep breath and remember this episode with Leiona and remember the why. We do this to help others and give others a safe place to call home. Thanks so much, Leiona, for joining us on the SAHMA Exchange. And thanks everyone for listening. Next episode, we're going to get a little bit more in depth about some kind of nuanced things we need to know about a certain topic. So make sure to tune in and make sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see you next time.